This crowd rises to its feet. Carl slammed it home. Garland left wing, free ball. Perfect! Garland went to the lane, locked him. Mobley, pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul.
Good. I muted the entire intro. I'm a big dumb idiot.
Okay.
But, you know.
That's less than fun. Do you want me to do it over again?
Yeah, yeah. You know what? You know what, guys? Let's do it all over again. Can you do that for me?
Yeah.
All right.
Why not? Let's
right,
make
shut
life
up,
easier
Justin.
for you.
This crowd rises to its feet. Carl slammed it home. Garland left wing, free ball. Perfect! Garland went to the lane, locked him. Mobley, pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul.
Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. The Cleveland Cavaliers keep the good times rolling. Evan Mobley shows dominance against the Philadelphia 76ers. Max Strus makes his return against the Milwaukee Bucks. And I make my return to the podcast now. Joining me today is my co-host, Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
Never been better, brother.
As you hold a beer.
An IBC root beer. The best root beer in the game.
So the sugar is the reason for you messing up and being all over the place to start this podcast.
That doesn't sound like me. Well, if you want to really get inside baseball, because you've been gone, the crop was all wrong on your full screen look. So I was desperately trying to fix that while the intro was rolling, because otherwise it was going to be just you unbelievable. It was going to just be your eyes in the frame. So while I was desperately trying to fix that, I forgot to unmute you. So it wasn't absent-mindedness in this particular instance, but it was a mistake nonetheless.
That's fair enough. You know, mistakes happen. It's all about how you bounce back from them, and I think that's been a fun part of how the Cavs have played lately. You know, they had a tough start against the Philadelphia 76ers where things were just not rolling offensively. You know, Milwaukee, I thought was a very thorough performance from them, but the Cavs just seem to find what they need to win on every single given night. And the number of comfortable wins we've had over these last three have really felt like a blessing, because we haven't had a lot of Cavs basketball, and basically none of these have been duds. Yeah,
I mean, they've won their last three by 79 points. Pretty much all three were wrapped by the time the fourth quarter started. You know, they've come from multiple parts of the lineup. And, you know, I think anyone prone to angst, and God knows I am, you know, saw them losing 3 out of 5, you know, starting with the loss to Boston, won a couple, you know, easy ones, and then lost 2 in a row to Atlanta. And then you have a couple uninspiring games also, you know. You lose to Miami and Miami. You have an ugly one against Washington, and you know, those prone to angst, I think you might wonder, like, okay, maybe, you know, the 15-0 thing was fun, but, you know, it was a fever dream. Like, they might be a really, really good team, but it's not just going to be this fun, this easy. They're not just going to kick everyone's teeth in all year. And that's a reasonable thing to get to, because that's how most seasons go, but they've kind of come back from those by kicking 3 teams' teeth in a row. All 3 of which were, you know, Brooklyn, maybe a bit of an exception, but Milwaukee's been red hot. Philly is trying in every way possible to claw their way back to respectability, and they just cannot. They could not. They were not at the same level as the Cavs.
Yeah, and you know, I think it's important to remember that any night can be a win or loss for any given team. We've seen that time and time again. I think back to the 18-2 stretch, and one of those losses was a loss to Philadelphia. Without Joel Embiid, where Tyrese Maxey went out.
That was a frustrating one. I had forgotten about that one.
Where, Maxey's red hot, it finds a way to win. Maxey started this game off really hot, and no Joel Embiid, but they do have Paul George playing, right? And that's certainly a lineup that can go out there and potentially steal a game. So to take care of business, I thought was significant. And, these are games that they should win, especially with those guys out. No Damian Lillard for Milwaukee.
But there's a huge difference between should win and you beat the brakes off them.
Yes. And especially, that Philadelphia game where you didn't have the best start, right? Where Maxey does get it going, where your offense isn't clicking. And to basically come back, it's funny that we've had quarters like that first quarter where it really doesn't feel like they're executing well. And then by the end of the first quarter, they have 30 points. They shot 52% from the field and 45% from three. Like, the turnovers sucked, but overall, like, they found ways to kind of put it together. And a lot of that was on the strength of Donovan Mitchell just having an amazing run in that quarter.
Yeah, I mean, that's when people call Donovan like a floor raiser for this team. That's what they're talking about generally, is like, even when the team isn't playing all that well for a stretch, he can just kind of take over and score 10 quick points. And if your best player scores 10 points, then the rest of the team's only got to score 20 the rest of the quarter,
Right.
And it's really not that crazy for the rest of the team to score 20 in a quarter, So, like, I've mentioned it before in the pod, Mac Perry, our friend of the pod, and always does his excellent It's Cavalier post-game shows. He always kind of opens each show with, they still ain't scored less than 100 yet, and no team's ever done it. And when you look at the way this team gets its buckets, it's easy to buy into that because you're just going to have at least 2 quarters where you score 30 every game.
Yeah, it's funny, too, because one of the sentiments I've kind of heard is, the Cavs are winning based on their depth, but when it gets to the playoffs, you have to shorten the rotation. I don't see why that's a bad thing. Like, when you look at this 3-game stretch, the minutes are hilarious. Darius is playing 45, Donovan's playing 29, Mobley 27, Allen 24. Like, I tend to view those guys playing normal starters minutes and getting up to like 36 minutes a night. I view that as another gear. I view that as a positive rather than, well, they're not always going to be able to rely on the bench. But when you do have this kind of depth, it really does help you navigate the regular season. There are going to be nights where one or more of your stars don't have it going, where they're dealing with something nagging, they're a little under the weather, or they're just going through a shooting lull, which we've seen at times. But when you have this much depth and guys that can contribute, it really helps you weather those storms.
Yeah, man. They are so good, and it's getting a little hard to podcast about them, like, just because it's just like, it's how many ways can you wrap a present? Because what's inside is Cavs good, Evan amazing. Though I thought that game against Philly, obviously the Charlotte game is one thing. And that's probably, that's the best offensive game he's ever had. He's had plenty of nights where he scored 22. But it felt as unfair as Evan felt in a long time.
Yes.
Against Philly.
Totally.
And so you have little variances of the same pod. But my God, are we just kind of saying Cavs really good? Cavs really good. There is just, and it's so uniformly good that it's not like a ton is changing from night to night.
Yeah, all the swing variables that we talk about it before the season, they're all kind of trending in the right direction, right? It's not just a return to form for Darius. It's a leap forward to the best play of his career. Evan Mobley taking a leap. Mitchell, doing exactly what you need from him. Jared Allen filling in the cracks. Karis LeVert having a great year. Ty Jerome stepping up in the way that you hope. George Niang having a bounce back season. Dean Wade making an impact, right? Isaac Okoro having a great season. Everything's kind of trending in the right direction. But I do think some of your sentiment about, we're running thin on material. One, I have a lot to talk about because I've missed the last 2 podcasts.
Here.
Yeah, because I haven't been here. And 2, I think some of that does have to do with playing so few games over such an extended stretch. And, Washington and Brooklyn aren't really going to give you a lot of meat to deal with. Milwaukee is a game where I thought that the Cavs were going to be tested, even without Damian Lillard. I was like, Milwaukee's been playing better defense recently.
And they tested us without Giannis.
Right. And Chris Middleton swapping in for Dame, so that gives them even more length. We know that they can be disruptive on that end of the court, but Cleveland just handled them so relatively easily. They won the Giannis minutes significantly. Like that's a really big deal. And it's been really fun. I do think that there's some tests ahead of them, especially with this West Coast trip, but I do think some of that is going to start trending in a different direction as these tests start to come. But we do have some changes here. Isaac Okoro, they announced that he's going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks with an AC joint sprain. Given how the Cavs have kind of handled injuries and taken a cautious approach, I kind of expect him to be out a little bit longer than the reevaluated date. But, obviously that leaves a hole in the starting lineup. Dean Wade is going to slot in there while Max Strus is on his minutes restriction. But as much as we've talked about Isaac being kind of a luxury that you can throw him in the starting lineup and it works, it's nice to have that third option when it comes to Dean Wade, who we know at the very least on the defensive end is really going to help make that lineup work.
Yeah. And Dean, now friend of the pod, Dean Wade, thanks to Dean for coming on.
Terrific job, by the way, buddy.
Oh, thank you. He's responded from his insertion of the starting lineup with two of his best offensive outings. And when Dean is hitting, Dean was sitting around 30% from three going into that Milwaukee game, and he comes in and hits 4 out of 5 against Milwaukee, 2 out of 3 against Philly, moving the ball really, really well. He defended Giannis so well whenever he ISO'd on him, and defended guys like Tyrese Maxey and Paul George very, very admirably as well. And it just gets really unfair when he's hitting, man. It gets, Kenny kind of, I think Kenny was flirting with saying that they were unstoppable when he was hitting in his post game. You could tell he was worried about being too braggadocious, but
Kenny's seen the lineup data. He's a nerd like me. He knows that when Dean Wade plays and he plays well, it really does raise the floor. And I got something I want to discuss with this because I find it incredibly interesting. So as you mentioned, he went 6-9 these 2 games from 3 after being in a bit of a funk to start this year. Take no Cavaliers players. There is a very clear chase down podcast bump when it comes to that. The minutes that he played, they had a plus 36 net rating in Dean Wade's minutes. But the thing I find really interesting is when you look at the lineup data this season, they have just over a plus 3 net rating with the starters. The offensive rating is a 107.5. And even in these 2 games where Dean had a plus 36 net rating overall, that starting lineup actually had a -5 net rating.
Crazy. I was just pulling that up as you mentioned it.
Yeah, and that was basically due to the offensive rating not being there. It was an 86.4 offensive rating in those 2 games. Obviously, that slow start.
Yeah, the start against Philly definitely
was really rough. But even the Milwaukee one in isolation wasn't a very strong outing. I think they actually had a negative net rating in that game as well. And as I was watching the start against Philadelphia, I was sitting there and I was like, it doesn't feel like there is anything structurally about Wade with the core 4 that is leading to offensive struggles. It feels like they've missed shots that they normally make. Darius.
He's missed shots that he's normally made.
Yeah, but even that's what I find so interesting because even in this game, he was hitting his shots. I don't think it had anything to do with Dean, but Darius misses a couple layups and Donovan has a cold start, and they have a few turnovers. Do you think that there's anything structural about it, or is this just one of those kind of smaller sample size things? Because we are talking about 109 minutes, which is something, but that is still very noisy.
I think it's one of those things that maybe there's a little bit structural in the sense of Dean has the least on-ball juice of any of the small forwards. I don't know if it's a spacing thing as much as it is maybe a ball handling thing. Like, Dean is not a weapon in transition the way Isaac is, or Max is as a trailer. You know, Dean is not a gravity puller off ball, and like he's also not going to not consistently shoot off the move, so defenses can maybe guard them a little differently. But with all that said, I do think it's still noisy, because I think generally when I see them out there, sometimes you'll see a starting lineup or any lineup that doesn't perform, and you feel the strain of it trying to figure itself out. I don't really feel that with the starters. I don't sit waiting for like, okay, can we get our first subs in so we can start winning? Like, that's not how I feel watching. So that, I mean, it's a very unscientific method to be sure, but like, I do think that has to mean something, that I'm not like sitting there begging for the lineup to change.
Yeah, and even when you look at the last 3 years of data, they do have a plus 6.1 net rating. That is, once again, off the strength of the defense. It's a 106.7 D rating, which is insane. But in general, when you look at kind of lineup data, you want to have at least 500 possessions. So that's only 313 possessions over 3 years. None of that occurred last season. He didn't play any minutes with the core four last year. So I think some of it's noise, but I do feel confident that lineup can work. I do think it's the best defensive look out of all the combinations. Like, even better than Isaac Okoro. Just really like what Dean can do with his length paired with those guys.
If I may caveat a little bit, I think depending on the personnel, like against the Celtics, I'd like Dean. Against the Bucks, I like Isaac.
See, I like Dean more against the Bucks because it allows you to put him on Giannis and have Mobley and Allen as the help. And I really think that kind of gang approach is really important when you talk about dealing with that kind of length. Isaac's done a good job.
I just love ice on Dame. I just love it.
That's fair. But you know, I think sometimes we're splitting hairs.
What about the Knicks? I'm gonna make you. I know this isn't the point you were trying to make, but it's interesting to me.
I think it's going to be Isaac for me in that one, because I even though I want to guard them straight up, with how many wings they have, especially if we're assuming that the configuration they're going to use,
just put ice on whoever wants to screen the most.
Exactly. Like you put him on Josh Hart rather than Jalen Brunson. You play Brunson straight up and then use Okoro to kind of blow that up, similar to how we put him on Draymond Green. I think that's how I would approach that matchup. But yeah, like, I do love that you have a variety of options. And another one of those options went into Kenny's quiver on Friday as well, with Max Strus finally making his return to the lineup. And it was just so fun to immediately see why he is going to elevate this team, why it is a seamless fit. And especially with the way that the Cavs are playing this season, Max just fits them like a glove. It was so great to see Max out there. It was so great to see him confident. I don't know about you, but I kind of forgot how quickly his shots go up and how violent that shooting form looks at times. But I really, really enjoyed his debut with the Cavs on Friday.
Yeah, it was fun. I thought the first half he looked rusty as hell. You know, he took a crazy three off movement with his feet nowhere near in the right spot. And like, I do feel like Max, like, one of the best indicators is his feet. You know, if he's set, I'm really confident it's going in. If his feet are in good shape, then it's great. If he's just a little off balance, then I get a little dubious pretty quickly. Which, you know, that's most shooters, in fairness. But yeah, he'd had a couple, and then just that weird play at the end of the half where he, like, I forget who it was, he like basically tackled them.
Gary Trent Jr.
There it is.
He got him with his butt in midair, which is better to hit him with the soft glute rather than the finger to the eye.
No talks about glutes on this podcast, given your recent struggles. But the second half, I thought it was like, oh, there you are. That's our guy. He's comfy. He had to he had to get 10 minutes in on the legs before he felt like comfortable. And he hit 3 threes in the third quarter, and hit him on relocates, which he's so freaking good at. I think he might be the best relocator on the team. Yeah. He just really has a sense. I think playing in Miami, his just natural smarts. He just knows where to go. He knows when the offense, and it's such a small thing that very rarely gets noticed. But when you know when you need to drift up to open up a lane for someone and keep the help away, or drift up because it makes it hard for the guy who just dug in on the post to get back to you. It's just brutal, and it's one of the kind of backbreaker things of like, how did he get so open? Like those kind of relocations give you that. And he had 3 or 4 really good relocates, and then I think the banner play is the one that I'd been having my eyes on from Jump Street, which is he goes and sets a screen for Evan Mobley on the left wing. Milwaukee has to put 2 on the ball for a second to stop a wide open, Mobley rim attack. And boy, was he having a lot of those against Philly, but also had a really strong game against Milwaukee. And Max is able to slip up to the top of the arc and take a wide open 3. And that's a play they've run with Sam a lot this year. And it's been pretty effective. But I think something that Max has that, in that setting is just big and strong. And he can set a really nasty, meaningful screen and not be on the back foot because a guy's hitting his chest. And when you're able to do that, and you're able to pop back up to the arc on balance with that extra step, it just gets a lot easier. And I think that is a play that I've talked about, the fact that Mobley kind of needs to be able to play as the initiator even against the best defenses. That feels like a very repeatable action against just about any personnel.
Yeah, and I like the ability to do that with Strus as, a change up that they can make, because they've ran a lot of actions with Mobley and the guards, but I think what defenses can do to kind of take away Garland or Mitchell at times, or to put pressure in those situations, especially if they're throwing length on the guards, it gets tougher to go to that at times. And I think we've seen that in some of those matchups. So if you do have a matchup where a team is kind of cross-matching defensively and they put more length on Garland or they put more length on Mitchell, being able to go to that inverted pick and roll with Max Strus, that is just such a nice weapon to have. And to your point about him being, just a bit bigger and stronger, like, he played a lot of power forward. He played about a third of his minutes at power forward in that final season in Miami. And part of that is because even though he is just 6'5", he does have a lot of strength. He does play with a lot of physicality. He is
stocky, my mother would call him.
Yeah, and I just feel like that is going to bring an element of chaos to the lineups that is going to be really beneficial for them. And ultimately what we need to see is how it works along the core 4. That is what we really wanted to see last season. We didn't really get a great sample of it. Those numbers did go well. I still maintain that I think it had to do with everybody else around him more so than Max, particularly what the guards went through early and late in the season. But it kind of sucks that we're going to have to wait for that, because when you look at how Kenny Atkinson runs his rotations, it seems like Max is going to get one big shift in the first half, one big shift in the second half. Chris Fedor said his minutes restriction is going to be in that 18 to 22 minute range. He played 19 against the Bucks. With how we stagger those rotations, there's just never going to be an opportunity unless he's closing the game, which wouldn't happen with that staggering rotation. It's just not going to happen until he's in that starting lineup. So we are going to kind of get these little samples of him with Darius, with Donovan, and with Allen, and with Mobley. But what I'm most interested in is him continuing to get those reps with Mobley, because he even had we got the pick and roll both ways, right? He found Mobley on the slip for the finish inside. They have terrific chemistry there, and Mobley being able to run that inverted pick and pop with Strus. I just want to see more and more of that chemistry, because I do feel like that is one of the most natural pairings that we have with the role players. Typically, when I look at the role players, I feel like Ty and Karras have the best chemistry with Allen, because both of them are such good pick and roll ball handlers. Max seems to fit best with Mobley, better than any other of our role guys. And I think a lot of that has to do with his time in Miami playing off of Bam Adebayo.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The only other thing I'll add on to that is that the coolest thing about a Max Evan 2-man game, if it's really humming, is it means Darius and Donovan or Donovan, depending on who's on the floor, are off ball. And
Right.
they are hanging on the weak side, ideally getting, a pin down screen for them to come out and flash at the top of the arc or on the opposite wing for a reversal. And like when those guys, and as I've said a billion times, like when they catch with advantage, it's just pretty unfair. It gets, you start getting teams in the blender like Philly got put in several times last night. And but as much as we've harped on the fact that we want those guys to catch the ball with advantage, it's really hard to do that schematically unless you have something that is drawing the defense's attention elsewhere. Like bad teams, you can trick them, but good, smart teams, you need to force their hand. So if Evan and Max are running successful 2-man game on one side of the floor and actually forcing the defense to commit resources in their direction, that's how you manufacture that advantage against the best teams in the league. And that's what you need to do if you want your offensive rating to stay at best in the league levels into the postseason.
Would you say that's what they need to do in order to do their best work?
Yeah, I would.
Well, what I need to do my best work is Zoom AI Companion, because only you can do your best work. Zoom AI Companion can help you do the rest, like automatically taking notes, answering meeting questions, and helping you respond to your coworker. Available at no additional cost with eligible paid plans. Work happy with Zoom AI Companion.
Oh, buddy. Nice to have you back.
Evan Mobley and Max Strus were definitely working happy. It was great to see them out there. I like the overly excited plays from Max too. I just feel like he plays at such a high tempo, and I think that was why it was so important for them to take their time, allow him to get the opportunity to really practice for basically 2 weeks here before he made his return to the lineup, because he does run so much when he's on the court. I forget what the exact stats were, but I knew he was at the top of the league last year for all those kind of miles ran stats. He is such an active player on both ends of the court, and I just really am excited. As you said, it allows Darius and Donovan to play off ball. And when you consider the spacing that Jared Allen has been used in this year and the way that he's been able to play off of the attention that Evan Mobley gets, I'm just really excited for what that means for him too. I just think that it's such a natural fit. I feel like it's the best version of this team. And the fact that we're sitting here at 25-4, feeling like there's the best version of this team that's a couple weeks away because Max Strus is on a minutes restriction and Isaac Okoro is going to need to come back. Like, that's exciting. It's exciting to feel like there's another gear yet to come, because what we have seen from them already is so great.
Man, I just don't know what to tell you. This team is freaking unbelievable. Everyone is contributing. I feel like Niang is playing his best basketball as a Cavalier. I feel like, and we just got to keep talking about Karras. My God, you go into that. I think it was the Milwaukee game. My brain is blending things, but that end of quarter sequence where he hits the unbelievable layup, then gets the rip right on the inbound and hits Donovan for the haymaker 3 to basically end the game. Like, just winning plays over and over and over again, up and down the roster. Niang hitting the floor in the fourth quarter, up 31 to get a steal. I feel like Jerome has really gotten his mojo back a little bit the last couple games after a few pretty quiet, a couple quiet weeks of play, really starting with those 2 Atlanta games. So I just feel like everyone is real. The only dude who probably would tell you I'm not playing very well right now is Sam Merrill, who, correct, that's fair. He's hurt right now and, is not shooting particularly well this season, down to, unfortunately, 33%, which is pretty crazy from 3. But, like, he's not a liability. You're not dying in the Sam Merrill minutes, which just goes to show, like, how well everything is humming, that all the ancillary stuff he does is enough to keep you, above water in those minutes. It's
It's a classic case of shooting poorly versus playing poorly. Like, I feel like he is playing very good basketball. He's taking the shots that he should be taking. The improvements he's made as a cutter this season are really apparent.
I've enjoyed his forays to the rim. They're mostly pretty good.
And he's showing a little bit of that connective playmaking. I still feel like there is a big difference when you see someone like Max Strus, where immediately some of those passes that he was making on Friday, I was like, oh my God, have we missed that? Like, I just feel like he is such an intelligent connective playmaker. But you can tell, like, that getting to practice with these guys, that's rubbed off on Sam. The hard work that he's made, he has made improvements as a passer and become a more well-rounded player. I'd put him almost in like the Steph Curry zone defensively, where, yeah, you're going to have some issues because of size, but he's in position, he's giving a good effort, and he has active hands, right? Like, that's what you want from someone defensively. That's what we want from Darius, right? Like, that's kind of there's going to be physical limitations when it comes to basketball, but if you're doing that and everyone's doing that up and down the lineup, that makes a big difference. Even George, as you said, like, I feel like he is making an effort, and you can tell that the work that he's put in on his body has made a difference. So, like, top to bottom, it just has been a really, really, really impressive start. And
I have a little Darius question for you, and I hesitate to even say it out loud. So he goes 9 of 11 against Philly, absolutely destroys them. He is now at 49% from the field, 44% from 3, and 94% from the line. Is our boy going to finish with a 50, 40, 90? Is he going to join one of the most illustrious clubs in the history of basketball?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think, as much as I expect a lot of this to continue, getting that extra, 1% to get up to the 50% from the field that's going to be tough. You just have to finish at such a high level so consistently, and particularly with the volume of threes that he takes, and is continuing to take this season.
Yeah, the percentage of his shot diet being threes makes it hard.
Yeah, but
you basically got to be like a 70% 2-point shooter.
Well, what's most exciting to me is that his true shooting percentage is about 64%, and if he's in that 63, percent true shooting percentage, like that is a fantastic level of efficiency. When you look at his per 36 stats, he's basically averaging 25 and 8. This is easily the best season of his career. This is the best that he's played. And, over this stretch, as I said, the last 3 games, he's only playing 25 minutes a night. So the fact that he's being so productive in those minutes is a lot of fun to watch. And, he had a bit of a cold stretch from 3. The Denver through Washington stretch, he was 9 of 33 from 3, 12 of 17 in the last 3 games. Like, that's kind of come back to earth. And,
and a lot of them are tough threes.
A lot of them are tough threes. There was a couple that I felt he was passing up against Philadelphia too, which was the funny thing. My favorite was, I think it was picked up on the mics. I was getting some context clues there, but he had passed it to LeVert underneath the basket, and I just heard him yell back at the bench. He was wide open, because I'm sure someone was giving him crap on the bench about not taking the open 3. But the ball ended up, because the pass was a little low, Karras swung it out, went back to Darius, and he hit the 3 from there and kind of did his trademark celebration. I just loved hearing him, like, that little soundbite coming through on the mic of, he was wide open, because that's going to be Darius's mentality. But I love that, you have that engagement from the bench at all times. They are bullying one another about getting those 3-point shots up and being aggressive at all times. And I just feel like this is such a great environment for these guys, where they're all kind of pulling in the same direction and rooting for one another's success. I do gotta say, though, that putback dunk attempt was absolutely absurd.
10%. That is I'm having way too much fun putback attempt. And I loved it, because if he had somehow miraculously got it, I would have been so thrilled.
That would have been up there with the Hardenstein almost dunk in the playoffs.
Yeah, when Darius is feeling bouncy, you can really tell, because he'll try stupid stuff like that. But it's great. It's fun. And I do feel like, we've talked a lot about Darius trying to figure out what the comp is. Don't you dare make a DJ Augustine joke. And as he's kind of gone through his ascendance, Steve Nash was kind of my favorite comp for him at the top level. And I think obviously the assist totals just in this system are not going to be Nashian, but I think the command of the offense and just the way he's getting to his spots on the floor and scoring with such ease, like that feels his scoring has felt very Nashian this year. And it's been really, really fun. And then I thought the Philly game, I mean the poster excluded, felt like the most Duncan game I've seen from Evan in a while, which is kind of our favorite. Everyone loved the KG comps for him. I've always been pretty into the Tim Duncan comp. That it just felt like, I was
going to say Philly felt more KG because
I guess you're right. Maybe Milwaukee was more Duncan. But these guys are just kind of hitting all their top. I guess really the reason I'm bringing this up is I just feel like they're all kind of hitting their top end targets. Like the guys that you feel stupid for comparing them to, they're just playing like at that kind of level. It's really fun.
Well, the benchmarks for their play in order for this team to be a contender, right? Like that's what they're hitting, and I think that puts them at a really exciting place. The Philly performance from Mobley really caught my attention because you're right. The Charlotte one was a little more explosive. It was a little more dominant. He hit all those threes, but I just love like the corner three he took in against Philly was to me the most exciting play, even though he had that poster dunk over KJ Martin and Andre Drummond. Just because if he's taking that kind of quick rhythm, perfectly balanced shot, not hesitating, like that just displays to me the level of work that he's put in and where his confidence level is with that shot. And later on, after he hit that shot, he had that possession where Paul George was kind of forced to close out on either him or Donovan, and he pump faked. Paul George comes to Mobley. Mobley passes to a wide open Donovan Mitchell in the corner. Paul George chose to leave Donovan Mitchell wide open in the corner because Evan Mobley was a shooting threat. Like that's what matters. That's what matters more than the 3-point volume. People that want him to get 4 or 5 shots up. I don't need him to get that many up because I feel like he is such a dominant player off the dribble, and that opens up so many other things for his game. I don't want him sitting out there like he's Channing Frye. But if it is enough of a threat, if he is taking and making those mid-range shots and he's taking those threes, and you have to factor that into the equation as a defender, that opens up so many options. It makes it basically painless to play him and Jared Allen together on the court, and it just makes this team so difficult to guard.
Yeah, I mean that was a really, really cool play, and the cool thing as well is that, because I do think in the postseason, the scout will be stronger and Paul George won't come over. He won't, because here's the thing. Paul George made the wrong call by making that step towards Evan.
Correct.
You can't leave Donovan wide open in the corner for a catch and shoot 3. However, what's cool is that not only has Evan's 3-point game gotten good enough that right now in the regular season, guys are taking that step or two towards him when he pump fakes. If Paul didn't do that, Evan with a head of steam and a live dribble is better than he's ever been. So he was going to force George to take a step towards him one way or the other. And the best thing an offense can be is a pick your poison offense where no matter what choice you make, you hate it. And like, I think that speaks as much, the fact that even if George hadn't respected the jumper, the Cavs are ending that possession with a good look.
Yeah,
and that speaks to Evan's growth on both sides.
It's the Giannis principle of gravity, right? Where you can disrespect the 3-point shot, but if you're going to give him a stride or two before he gets to you as a defender, He's either going through you, he's going around you. Like, that length and speed and strength is just so difficult to contend with that you have to stop the freight train before it gets going. And the stat line was just absurd. Like, he played 30 minutes, 22 points, 13 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals, 1 block. Like, that is an all NBA player. That is not just an all-star level player. And probably a good time to mention now, go vote for the Cavs. They deserve to have at least 3 all-stars this year. So let's go.
And
make
Kenny
that
basically is hard locked to coach the all-star team, right?
Correct.
Because even if the Celtics were to catch them, Missoula coached last year, right?
Yeah. So it's, he's going to be coaching the All-Star game. We deserve to have at least 3. I still think that Jared has a case. It's going to be tough for these guys just because of the minutes that they're playing.
I was thinking, I think it's 3. I think Jarrett's going to get left off.
Yeah, I think realistically, I think 3 would be kind of the target there, but vote for him anyways. Jared,
can I note? I think it actually would be an injustice for it to be less than 3.
Okay. Yeah.
I think I'm there.
Elaborate.
I'm just there. The reality is the only reason that shouldn't happen is if a couple dudes get voted in that really don't deserve to be in on the fan vote level, that don't deserve to get in, because you cannot tell me Darius Garland is not playing like an all-star right now. You cannot tell me Evan Mobley is not playing like. All 3 are playing basically at all-star starter levels.
They're all playing at all NBA levels.
Yes. And if you're an all NBA candidate, you are an all-star. That is just like a cut and dry, hard fact. So, Jarrett, I think it'll be harder, even though I think he's playing really, really well, just because the counting stats, 13 and 10, it's a little tough.
There's a lot of talented players in the East too,
yes.
Right? Like
Giannis, Towns, Brunson, these guys, some of the Boston, at least 2 or 3 Boston players are going to be in the conversation. Like, there's only 12 players, so I'm not to throw a fit over not getting all 4 would be, I think, silly, but I am willing to throw a fit if they don't get 3.
And I think it would be justified. I think that they are playing at the highest level for the best team in the league so far in the regular season.
The best team, like, by a healthy margin.
Yeah. And, we had talked about the defensive slippage and that being something to keep an eye on. You look at it now over the last 10 games, they are 4th in defense with a 105 defensive rating. Absolutely will take that. And that 105 defensive rating, it's actually probably better than that. I should have looked that up on Cleaning the Glass, because those fourth quarters where it's been primarily bench guys have kind of inflated that. I know that happened against Brooklyn. That certainly happened against Milwaukee. But they are playing really well in the defensive end. Over this stretch, the offense has come down a little bit. It's a 118 offensive rating, but that's still 3rd in the league. They have the number 1 net rating over that stretch. Like, they are just consistently winning and doing so in different ways. And I think our prediction of, the offense is going to come back down to earth a little bit. They're no longer shooting 49% on wide open threes. It's down to, I think, like 44% or 45%. But that's going to be coincided with their defense improving, which we have absolutely seen. And I just think as Max and as Dean and as Okoro returns to the lineup,
believe it or not, by the way,
just going to get better and better.
Believe it or not, we actually are 8th in defense per Cleaning the Glass in the last 5 games.
I was going with last 10, but
last 10. Sorry.
Oh, there you go.
I blew it.
You did a little bit, but that's fine.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. This is why you leave the live research to me, buddy. This is that is my domain.
I was trying to hustle, I have to. I'll hold deal.
2 podcasts, and all of a sudden you just start forgetting your role, taking.
Just
over
trying to help. Just trying to help, Justin. Sorry. You picked the wrong website stats, admitted it on air, and I tried to quickly help. I'm being scolded.
I was going off of vibes, though. I don't care if it's actually true or not. It felt true to me. That's the thing.
That's a really good point.
I don't want to be fact checked there.
What we feel is what's most important here.
But it's fun because, they are playing some of their best basketball heading into a really interesting stretch. Monday, they host Utah. That game, I think they're already 15-point favorites against Utah. It'll be fun to see both Lowry and Sexton back. I think last time they came to Cleveland was one of those wins that we had without Garland, Mitchell, and Mobley. So it'll be fun to see them actually go up against the Cavs starters. But after that, we got that West Coast trip. And I think that that's going to be a really, really interesting test because they're going to be playing against 2 top 10 offenses. They're going to be playing against 2 top 10 defenses. You got a little bit of a back-to-back in there with Warriors Lakers on Monday, Tuesday, but you do have 2 days off before the back-to-back and you have 2 days off after the back-to-back. I think that is going to be a really, really interesting stretch for them.
And what a New Year's Eve present for the boys to get to spend New Year's Eve in LA and then not play till January 3rd.
That is actually pretty nice.
Shouts to Adam Silver in the scheduling committee.
You know what? This really is. It's Adam Silver really cares about LeBron and Tristan's friendship.
That's nice.
He had LeBron in town for Halloween, his favorite holiday. He's going to have Tristan in LA with LeBron on New Year's. It's just perfect.
It is a hilarious outcome. But you know what it also is, Justin? It's just 5 straight games against the Big Bad West, you know, which everyone assures me is just chock full of elite basketball teams. I'm a little more dubious. I think the prize of the West is not its top level play, but its depth. I think the fact that, you have a bunch of teams that are at least pretty good. But, if there's a good way to shut that kind of narrative up, and it's just to go run the table in, these 5 games and look good doing it.
Yeah, and honestly, we've been short on tests this year. Most of them, they have passed with flying colors. You think back to that Lakers game that we were in town for. Cavs comfortably won that one. The Warriors come to town, best defense in the league. They're playing some of the best basketball, up 45, but in the blink of an eye, right? And we want to see how the Cavs offense and defense holds up against the best offenses and defenses in the league. So far, when you look at how the Cavs have performed versus top 10 defenses per Cleveland Glass, they have the number 1 offense against top 10 defenses this year. It's a 122 offensive rating. That is phenomenal. Versus top 10 offenses.
Is that better than is that better than their just regular offensive rating?
Yeah. And the Cavs are smoking teams. They're smoking like the bottom 10 and the top 10, and the middle is like, it would be the best offense in the West, but not up to the Cavs standards. We have a little higher standards than that. But even when we talk about how their defense performs against the best offenses, versus top 10 offenses, the Cavs actually have the number 3 defense in the league with a 110.1 defensive rating. Obviously, it's going to hurt to not have Isaac Okoro for these games, but I think what we want to continue to see is, can their offense hold up against the best defenses? Can their defense hold up against the best offenses? We have a lot more of a track record about the defense holding up over the last few years, but because we're not going to find out what it's going to look like in the playoffs until the playoffs actually occur, the closest thing we have to that is, does the offense hold up against the best defenses in the league, or are we just beating up on the Nets and Wizards of the world? So far, the answer has been no. Like, it's not just beating up on the worst teams. We are really good against the best defenses, but you want to see that sustained. You want to see how Mobley does individually. You want to see how Garland does. You want to see top to bottom how they perform in those games.
Yeah, man, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited. I love a West Coast trip because it's just, you get different challenges. I love playing, even though he'll make me crazy, getting a couple grifty calls. I love playing Luka because I think he's a really good challenge for our players. I think we do a good job on him, even though there will be games where he'll just absolutely rip your throat out. Always
that's one where we really miss Isaac. That's.
I think we switch really well onto him, though. I think Evan and Jarrett do a great job switching onto Luka. I'm excited to see them go play in Denver. That's if the at home versus Denver was like a quarter of a measuring stick game. I feel like in Denver is just always a different ball game.
Right?
And like seeing how they kind of respond to that is really, really exciting. And I mean, here's the thing, Justin. They have a real shot at going into the new year at 29-4. And like, we're talking like that's like a 72 win pace, like almost halfway through the year.
Yeah.
I actually did check going into last night's game. I haven't checked it since, but FanDuel has been doing updated like win total lines all through the year, and the Cavs are at 59.5, and they were at even money for 59.5 wins. And what that tells me is, one, holy crap, but like the fact that like just it tells me that the smartest analysts out there think the Cavs are pretty, as likely as not to be a 60 win team. And in order for that to even be in question, they'll have to play a lot worse than they've played this year. A healthy amount worse. So I don't know, man. I just feel like the sky's the limit with this team right now. They are, as you've pointed out, as I've pointed out, they are still getting better. They're still learning. I asked Dean, like, when I interviewed him, like, what are you working on? Is this the first time Kenny really gets to, tweak things? He's like, yeah, we don't have to make big sea changes, but like we installed a couple counters. We talked about the ways that we, do some defensive coverages, and like, they're just getting to fine tune stuff, and like the devil's in the details for this stuff, and their ceiling is just going to keep raising the more they get to tweak and tune, and as they get more and more minutes with each other. Obviously, health is the only thing that I feel like is going to slow this team down, as I voraciously knock on wood.
Yeah. We got to remember to do that every time that we're feeling excited. Looking at their current pace, they're on a 71 win pace. Like that is nuts. That is the winning percentage that they have. I obviously don't expect that to be the case, but 60, as you said, even money odds to get to 60 wins. Like, that's a major accomplishment. Not a lot of franchises get up to 60 wins. And,
for what it's worth, Boston's was set at 60.5. So FanDuel has no faith.
Well, here's the important thing, too. I'm glad that you brought up Boston when it comes to who's going to finish higher. We still have 2 games left against Boston. I don't think people always remember this. If you split those games, the next tiebreaker is how you have played in conference. The fact that the Cavs have not dropped a game to the Central Division is really important. Being 3-0 against the Milwaukee Bucks is really important because that could be the next tiebreaker. And if it does come down to the wire and Boston is right on their heels all season, that is going to be taking care of business against Milwaukee, against Chicago, against Indiana, who we haven't played yet, against Detroit. That's going to really matter. And some of those are, potential letdown games when you're playing Detroit or Indiana or whoever. Like, you might think, okay, that's, a Wednesday in February, we can go out and win this game. Those games could all really matter. And I think as good as they are, sometimes you are playing the schedule, and that's going to be kind of one of those central tensions, especially as we get through this January and February stretch heading into All-Star break. Making sure that they can maintain their focus and continue to win at a high clip is going to be really, really interesting to monitor.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool season now, like especially since they survived that initial stretch, because you basically get like 2 little All-Star breaks. You get the NBA Cup week, then you have another not sprint but a healthy distance run. Then you get the All-Star break, then you go into your kind of home stretch of the season before you get into the playoffs. And in so many ways, dude, I'm so grateful for the Celtics being this good, because they're kind of just this whetstone that keeps the Cavs sharp. Like, they can't have a week where they drop 3 out of 4, because Boston will leapfrog them, and then New York's going to be right on their tail. New York is playing unbelievably good basketball right now, and if the poor Orlando Magic
playing a lot better too.
And if the poor Orlando Magic stopped, stepping on whatever what's the voodoo doll they're stepping on right now, and losing all they're hanging as well. So I just think the fact that the top of the East is shaping up and getting this strong, I think is actually a really, really good thing for kind of the rest of for the rest of the season for the Cavs as a Cavs fan who just wants to watch as many wins as I can, because like that pressure just isn't going to go away.
Yeah. And I think also the fact that these guys have had successful regular seasons and then, kind of ran into a wall when it came to the playoffs. The offense didn't continue to be great in 22, 23, had injuries last year, so that wasn't as satisfying as it could have been. Like, I think that is keeping this mentality of we got to keep working on stuff. Like, we are holding ourselves to a championship standard. We need to keep working and, workshopping and trying to get Mobley better and trying to improve our chemistry, find different lineups that work. I just feel like there's a lot of kind of tweaks and little modifications and little internal goals that they have for themselves, and that's the kind of stuff that can keep you fresh over regular season. So I'm really excited to see what it looks like. We will be back after the holiday. I believe we're recording on Thursday, so Merry Christmas to everyone out there. Happy holidays, however you choose to celebrate. I hope you guys have a good couple days, and we will be back later this week.
I like that your however you choose to celebrate is very similar to your phrasing for however you choose to listen. You're just on your outro vibe, baby.
Yeah. I'm a man of routines. That's basically what I am. But big thanks to everyone that tuned in live on YouTube. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.